Welcome to our very first program in which we try to provide information and stimulate your thinking. I'm Walter Boomsma, your host and Communications Director for the Maine State Grange. Our topics today may seem like an unusual combination. We're going to talk about the Maine Grange Foundation and shopping, but we're doing that because it really is an unusual combination and it has a very interesting impact. With me today are Vicki Huff and Steve Verrill. Vicki is a longtime Granger, past master of the Maine State Grange, and currently serves as the Maine State Grange Treasurer. Steve is also a longtime member, also a past state master, and currently serves on the State Grange Executive Committee. Really appreciate both of you being here.
Great to be here, Walter.
Thanks for having us.
This is our very first program. There are going to be, we're hoping we don't have any technical difficulties. It'll just be people difficulties. So just as a quick background, today's program was inspired in part by a recent meeting of the recently formed, actually, Maine Grange Farmers Initiative. During one of the committee meetings, several of the folks on the committee talked about some of the achievements they've made in their Granges, often as a result of receiving grants, very often grants pertaining to preserving or restoring the building. And when we start talking about grants, we probably have to talk about the Maine Grange Foundation. And Steve, I know you really were largely responsible for the formation of the Maine Grange Foundation. Can you talk to us a little bit about how and why that came about?
Well, when I became state master, I would get a lot of inquiries about, what is our tax exempt status or what is our tax exempt number? And I had to tell people, well, we are a 501 organization, but we're not charitable. We're not a 501c3. So it became clear that, that perhaps we should form a 501c3 corporation. So I took it to the executive committee and they agreed, and we went out and make sure that we did it right. We hired a lawyer to set it up for us, and the rest is history.
And how does the 501c work in terms of grants? I mean, I think am I correct that many times many of these grants that are available have to be applied for through or by a 501c, and in other words, the average Grange couldn't necessarily qualify for one of those grants?
Yeah, a 501c3 is an IRS designation, and for people to be able to, deduct it on their income taxes, or some of these foundations, large foundations that have money, they only give grants to organizations that are 501c3. So, you have to have that designation from the IRS in order to give this preferential tax treatment to people that want to give money. Otherwise, they may not give it to you if they can't write it off on their taxes.
The way the tax situation is changing, that may not be as big a benefit as it used to be.
Yeah, well, since they raised the standard deduction, there aren't as many people.
It's interesting because a lot of people, I think, do think the Grange is, and very often you hear people say, well, the Grange is nonprofit. Well, I know some businesses that are nonprofit, but that's really two different things. So it's not enough that you're not making money, so to speak, to become a nonprofit.
You've got to be designated a charitable organization by the IRS, and the Maine State Grange can't be, because we do a lot of legislative things. You can't be involved in politics to be, have lobbyists and things like that.
Yeah, and I know we did some, and Vicki, you may have been involved in this, it was a few years ago. We did some research on this, and there actually is on the Maine State Grange website, there is I think it's like one page write-up describing the difference between the foundation, which is a 501(c), and the Grange, which is, I believe, a 501(c), maybe. May not have that number right. Yeah, I think it is an 8. Yeah, so truly, and I know some individual Granges that have looked into trying to become a nonprofit. And what they found is it's a very, very cumbersome, difficult, lengthy, complicated process. And they actually don't have to do that because they can access the foundation for that purpose.
Yeah, I think it took like 5 years for us to prove ourselves. I was, of course, out of office at that time, and I don't know. Apparently, we submitted the correct forms, and we were granted that, permanent status.
Yeah.
The Maine Grange Foundation.
Yeah, and I know, and this is not Grange related, but another organization that I'm involved with, actually it's not even here in Maine, but they lost their 501(c) status by not filing the required reports, annual reports with the IRS. And I can tell you that it took us it was well over 2 years to gain it back. And it cost us a significant amount of money to do so. But the obvious value becomes that now you are eligible for grants and tax deductible donations, and something we don't hear very often about at the state level, but we do national, is people could actually, I suppose, make the Maine Grange Foundation a beneficiary of their estate. Hadn't really thought too much about
that's something we really haven't gotten into, but the National Grange is always letting people know that they can, leave money to them in their will, or they can, somehow give them some money, a large sum of money up front while they're still living as a gift because of the 501(c)(3) designation.
Yeah, I know before we went on the air, so to speak, we talked a little bit about this in terms of the foundation really doesn't have any money. It's kind of a pass-through thing where, if somebody
could, if we had people that could write grants and for certain purposes that are in line with the foundation's purposes, we could have some money too.
Yeah, and then the foundation could end up in the business of making grants.
Exactly.
Not just passing through grants. But you have to have money in order to do that. And I know, Vicki, you've been dying to talk about shopping. There actually is a connection here.
There is a connection, Walter, and it's a great connection, and it's through Amazon Smile. Amazon is a great organization in that it does give money to 501(c)(3) corporations. And so while I was state master, I set up to have have it go through the foundation. So I set the foundation up through Amazon Smile, and people can use that like they would a lot of other nonprofit and 501(c)(3) organizations. There are many to choose from, but the money does come in quarterly from Amazon Smile and gets deposited into the foundation account. That is how it was set up. And it's not tons of money, but it's money that can be used to help pay. We have to, do those filings every year, and there's a cost to that. And that's the things that, the Amazon Smile can go to, is to help fund that program. And maybe eventually, if there are enough people that are donating through it, it could be used for something substantial. And that's the hope. That's the plan. And it's an easy process to make that part of if you use Amazon, you can set it up through Amazon Smile, or you can easily click the foundation connection or the Amazon Smile connection on our website, which is a great tool.
Yeah, it's and I think it seems to me it's like either 1 or 1.5% of what you purchase.
That's correct, Walter. And it's one of those things that sometimes they give us bonuses. There'll be specific days. Yes, specific days throughout the year. I have not seen that this year. I'm the one that actually still receives the communications from Amazon. So when they come up with a new place for us to be able to advertise a new banner for Amazon Smile, those I pass on to you when I receive them, but they also send the communications to me if there are special days, and we could post those on the website as well.
Sure.
Letting us know that if you shop on this day, instead of only getting 1%, we might get 2% or we might get 4%, depending upon what Amazon promotes.
Yeah, the pennies add up. I mean,
Certainly do. They certainly do. Yeah.
You know, if you're going to shop on Amazon, I mean, this is going to be one of the, I guess, the easiest and most painless fundraising things that I've seen in a long time, because it doesn't cost the shopper anything. Your price stays the same. So if you are shopping on Amazon, you don't lose anything, and the foundation gains a donation of 1.5% of the amount of money you've spent. I mean, and again, it takes a while to add up. Certainly, I think I can do some math in my head here. If you spent $1,000 a year with Amazon, that would equate to a $15 donation to the foundation.
Exactly.
And it
Yes.
just happens. Wow. So shopping is fun on two counts, right?
Absolutely. It benefits you or whatever you may be purchasing for, and it also can go to a very worthy cause.
Yeah. This is Walter Boomsma, Communication Director for the Maine State Grange. I'm talking with Steve Verrill, past master and executive committee member, and Vicki Huff, also a past master and currently treasurer of the Maine State Grange. We've been talking about shopping. We've been talking about the Grange Foundation. I think each of you might have a story or two for us about how a Grange has successfully worked with the Maine Grange Foundation.
Yeah, Walter, I guess I can think of a few things. My own Grange in particular, we received a free chairlift from someone in town just by having the 501c3 send him a letter saying that it was worth $1,400 and he had received no benefits and services for making that donation. So that helped us a lot. We recently received a $2,000 grant from the Maine Arts Commission to do a bicentennial of Maine program, and that money is sitting in the Maine Grange Foundation right now, waiting for us to find a time when we can spend it. If the virus ever ends.
And when you say us, Steve, do you mean your Grange?
My own Grange.
Yeah, okay, in your Excelsior, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And actually, I think one of the first things that ever happened, the Maine State Grange, when the Maine Granger newspaper started to be, when we first sent it to everyone in the Grange, we had a lady, Kay Calvati, who wrote a grant from the Plum Creek. She got $5,000 from the Plum Creek organization, and we printed 5,000 copies of it, and it was promoting our junior and youth camp that was at the Bryant Pond camp that year. And so that worked well for getting that newspaper out to everybody and to promote our youth and junior program.
That's cool. I think there's more of this going on than people realize.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and part of the challenge, obviously, and probably a future program, but part of the challenge is to find somebody who knows how to write these grant applications, because that can be very tricky. So, Vicki, you must have something.
Yes, there are actually a couple of examples, and I'm going to start with the first one because it involves Saco Grange, and they are in what they want to create as part of the historical district in the city of Saco.
Oh.
So they were kind of re-establishing themselves a number of years ago, and one of the ladies that actually joined their Grange also belonged to the Historical Society. and she had some familiarity with actually writing grants. So she applied for grants for the Saco Grange and went through the foundation to do so, using the foundation's information, etc. And basically, when the check comes back, it comes to the foundation, and the Grange that has made the request also needs to send in a copy of what that money's going for. So if they applied for a grant to be able to fix their roof, they in turn need to send in a bill that says this is what the roof cost, and then the grant, the foundation pays the money out to them. The same thing happened with American Eve, and theirs was a actual grant to do repairs to their hall. I think they went through Belvedere, but I'm not positive on that. I don't want to use that as a quote, but they were able to get a grant, and they also went through the foundation and did some major renovations to their hall. Now, there's also some money out there that we don't necessarily know about that I just want to share with you, and that's what Highland Lake did. Highland Lake Grange actually reached out to their city. They're in the city of Westbrook. And come to find out, there was federal money through the county, through Cumberland County, and it had to go, and they actually ended up qualifying because their Grange is where the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts meet. And in that part of the city of Westbrook, it's considered an area that's underdeveloped and needs, they qualified through some very specific guidelines. It actually ended up being federal money. They received $20,000, and they in turn had to come up with $5,000 in either labor or themselves money that they put out. They put a roof on their hall. They did a whole bunch of different things because they had an electrician as part of one of their members, or somebody through the Boy Scouts. So they were able to get a lot of that work and do all of that. So just to say that there are other places out there, not only of the foundation, but I think that if you do some research, you can actually find that there are other ways to get money, because Granges qualify because we do so many of those community service things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Boy, I mean, we could probably do a whole program on fundraising because, so many Granges, you hear the sad stories, unfortunately, more often than you hear the happy stories, which is one of the reasons for this program, actually, is to hear some of these happy stories. But Valley Grange, the Grange I belong to, we couldn't do any of our typical fundraising projects this year. One of the things, I'm almost hesitant to share this because I don't want everybody going to all the towns in our area, but we actually wrote to every town that we have an impact in. Our Words for Thirds project, for example, is in I think it's like 9 or 10 different towns, and no, it's more than that. My gosh, we're in 4 school districts. So we basically appealed to every town and said, look, we could use some help this year. And it wasn't overwhelming, but I can tell you that we raised as much money, if you will, by getting grants from towns as we normally would doing a major fundraiser. This sort of bit of a very pleasant surprise. And one town actually sent us double what we asked for. And I think that kind of brings us to the fact that if you're trying to raise money, whether it's a grant or whatever, you've got to be relevant. People will support. I know when we do fundraising at Valley Grange, we set up, typically we'll sell raffle tickets. And a couple of our members just love doing this. And we actually get a little school desk and set the school desk up with dictionaries on it. And the pitch is that I think the price of a book of raffle tickets provides 1 dictionary for 1 child. And it's amazing the response we get. And I'm kind of off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think, with everything that's going on in our world today, it's so easy to just kind of collapse and become comatose when we really need to be looking at, what can, not necessarily what should, but what can we do? I think there's just a lot of opportunities out there that are still undiscovered. I posted a thing recently. I remember, Vicki, I noticed you really liked it. Grange out in California. had a really unique fundraiser. Um, and basically, they allowed people, I don't know how to describe this, would you say they allowed people to buy their way out of participating in a fundraiser?
Exactly. You've heard of the bakeless bake sale, where you know, what you would have paid for ingredients is what you donate for to, you know, directly. So you're not actually selling the item, but you might have spent, you know, $5 or $6, and that's what your donation is. But what they did by making that postcard and giving you all of those different options, that was really cool, because they put some thought into that. And that's why I thought it's along the same idea, but it's you know, it's getting it out there and saying, okay, so you don't want to give us 2 hours of your time. So is 2 hours of your time worth $50? And a lot of people will say, absolutely, it's worth $50.
Yeah.
And you get them by, you know, that's the catch. That's the way that you get them, is like, if you don't want to spend this kind of time, or you don't want to, you know, do this particular activity and take this many hours out of your day, is it worth this for you not to have to do that? And yeah, that's a great, it's great. And I'm curious to see exactly how much money they made.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll share that. I mean, that's an old fundraising issue, is do you tell people how much you actually raised or not? But yeah, I think it would be kind of interesting to see that. I did a study a few years ago, and we're kind of getting tight on time, but I can't resist sharing this. And the numbers are going to be from memory. But we have a community night, except for this year. Every year in the spring, we have a community night. And one of the things I talk about at community night as program director for Valley Grange is the value of volunteering. And what I've done in the past is I've taken the population of Piscataquis County, and I've eliminated, and again, this is from memory, I think I eliminated people under 20 maybe, and over 80. I said, you know, free ride, we're not going to count them. And then you take the balance of that population and you say, if every person above the age of 20, under the age of 80, spent 5 minutes every day doing something for their community, what would the value of that be? And again, I wish I could remember the exact numbers. I'll have to write a column on it. When you do the math, and I think I used something like $14, $15 an hour, every citizen older than 20, under 80, 5 minutes a day, $6 million a year.
Wow.
You know, and that's why when we talk about Amazon Smiles and 1.5%, it doesn't sound like much. But when you start multiplying that and creating that I can't think of the word I want, momentum, I guess, for lack of a better word, creating that momentum, we see that. I think we can see so quickly that there's so many things we can do. There's another great story about a former Grange Hall, actually. You gotta love these people. After the Grange closed, a bunch of people in town said, man, we can't lose this Grange Hall. They had a mission, and they got all these grants, and it's kind of an interesting story because it's a perfectly preserved Grange Hall. And they're actually operating it as a community center. And the only thing that's missing is they're not officially a Grange. So, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of how we look at things. Wow. Yeah. So if somebody really kind of got turned on today by this whole little conversation and decided they wanted to do some grant stuff and maybe use the Maine Grange Foundation, what do they do? I mean, how do they get started? I mean, we certainly can't teach them Grange writing, but what would be some of the things you'd recommend they do?
I think I would contact the State Grange office to find out, you know, how to proceed with a grant. They may be able to help you, or if you're filling out grant applications, probably there's information there that would tell you that you need to go to the Maine Grange Foundation to have them apply for the grant for you. Depends on what you're doing, I guess, but I'd start with the Maine State Grange office.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Anything else either of you'd like to add before we kind of wrap up here?
Just thank you for having us on, and we hope that this is helpful for Grangers. That's the biggest thing, is that we want this to be something that people start asking questions about. That's how we get the word out.
Yeah, I've sort of committed on behalf of the entire communications department to trying to do one of these type of programs every month, at least once a month, because I think a few years ago we did the leadership thing at state headquarters and brought in successful people from successful Granges and just had them talk about what they were doing. And that was really well received. And I think something like that might apply here. So those of you that are listening and watching, if you've got some ideas about things you'd like to see on a program like this, send me an email, webmaster@mainestategrange.org, or you can submit your idea through the website. We're here to help each other. Obviously, this is not a Grange meeting. It was not a Grange meeting, but I think we still ought to remember, as there is no more work for us today, and we are again to separate, let us not forget the principles of our order. Let us add dignity to labor, and in our dealings with our fellow men, be honest, be just, and fear not. Boy, is that good advice for today, huh? Let us be quiet, peaceful citizens, feeding the hungry, helping the fatherless and the widows, and keeping ourselves unspotted for the world. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for doing this.
And we'll hopefully talk again real soon.